Welcome to one of our biggest shows we've ever had. Welcome to Sin City Crypto. My name is David. Today on our show, we'll be hosting Charles Hoskinson, the founder of Cardano. We'll be asking him various amounts of questions. We're going to ask him about Midnight, Plutus, what is going on in the Cardano ecosystem, what he thinks about what Arthur Hayes said in an interview. Not so nice words. We'll get Charles's reaction to that. We're going to talk about some Bitcoin. Bitcoin's making all-time highs against other foreign currencies. When will that happen here in the United States? We're going to discuss that. We're going to look at some charts, some trade setups, and much, much more. Oh, and also, the SEC is getting sued. Let's get into it.
Hola! It's your boy Big Rob back in the house. Welcome to Sin City Crypto. If it's your first time checking us out, we're the entertainment-focused cryptocurrency channel. We take old, boring, and stale information and we deliver that thing in a fun and sexy way that doesn't bore you. You know, Bitcoin 52,000 is back. I went to bed last night and I was thinking about what I said yesterday. I was like, you know what? Bitcoin was at that 50K support range. And I said, it ain't gonna go down no lower.
Wow.
Big Rob's right.
Wow.
Back up.
Is that a lobster?
That is a lobster.
I wonder why.
Yeah. You like my lobster? You know, growing up, I had
I like lobster when it's cooked and drenched in butter.
I had a stuffed animal when I was growing up. They carried around everywhere. You want to know what his name was?
Robin.
Lobster. Yeah.
Wow. Wasn't that a few years ago?
It's a Virginia thing.
Anyways,
My brother threw him away.
Of course.
I'm still pissed about that.
right too. Gravy Train is joining us. Gravy, how you doing?
I am good. How are you?
Is everything gravy in your neck of the woods?
Everything is gravy on my neck of the woods.
We heard you have a very important question to ask Mr. Hoskinson today.
I really do.
Okay. We're excited to
do.
see what that is. Rocco, how you doing today, man? You better be wearing some Cardano gear than back there. Okay, good. Perfect. There he is. He's ready.
That's the man.
Rocco Botticelli. How do you say Cardano in Italian? Cardano. Anyways, I mentioned, well, you know what? Before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to Cam's Blue Wire Technology. They're a sponsor of today's show. Today's crystal clear 4K stream is brought to you by them. If you want to learn how they can help your business scale and grow and maximize your networking, IT, and cybersecurity, visit bluewiretech.com or click the link in the description of this video. Now, I mentioned Bitcoin is making new all-time highs against other fiat currencies. And here is a brief video kind of taking us through, well, which are these countries? So Argentina, Burundi, Congo. It's too hard to keep up. But now, what is the significance of this, right? Robin, what is the significance of Bitcoin continuing to make all-time high against currencies that are backed by nothing but the full faith in the government that issues it?
Interesting, man. I don't know what to make of it. I would just assume that there's less financial sovereignty, right? Because other countries are dependent on the US dollar and all of the programs that have been placed globally that benefit the US and our economy. And so yeah, I think it's just a measure of people looking for other options, right?
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, like, there's no better fiat system than the dollar right now, right? It's not like you're gonna go sell your dollars for
what?
pesos, right? You're not gonna be like, you know what, I'm getting out of this dollar thing, I'm going to peso, right? And so other countries, you know, it's like, hey, I'm gonna leave my own currency. Am I gonna go to the dollar? I mean, that's an option, but then you also have, you know, a private money system, right? Decentralized, free of inflation. Now, a lot of crypto tokens do have inflation, so it just depends on which. Even Bitcoin has inflation, right? No, or at least it will for a few more years. You know, a few more years.
But it's very minute, right? Obviously, you know, that number gets cut in half every 4 years. So
it'll be very negligible.
2 more months. Yeah. Now this video showed, right, all-time high against the yen, other currencies. When are we going to see the all-time high against the dollar?
All-time high against the dollar. I mean, it's got to be around the corner, right?
You still in the before having camp?
Yeah.
because right, new information comes out, right? I'm kind of hoping you have. You know what? Actually, I'll pull it up. The flows, the ETF flows. I believe yesterday was another massive day. I'm just pulling up.
I got it. If you want to.
You do? Okay, perfect.
So here you have the volume was for yesterday was
Very low.
was lower than the day before. So coming in on Tuesday, we had 2.5 billion, 1.5 billion in volume. And then the net flows are down here, right here. This one doesn't have yesterday's numbers yet, but the net inflows yesterday was over $500 million. So just to put it, so yeah. So all right, now I want to talk about some of the altcoin market real quick. We do have WorldCoin up 40%. This thing has not slowed down, man. Have you picked up any WorldCoin today?
I have definitely not picked.
No, up 175. You know, this the Sam Altman coin. So
Well, we had the Sora, right? The new video integration with OpenAI. Sam Altman's over here talking about raising north of, like, valuation wise, $7 trillion. I mean, a number that a lot of people can't even fathom, right? For a company. And so this is something that obviously the pump from WorldCoin was, I mean, you don't got to be genius to put two and two together, right? New Sora comes out, hype build around it. People are tweeting all about it. It's making its way through social media. There's articles written about it, and the token pops. But this is not something I have even remotely thought about for a single second. Here's
in case the viewer here is not familiar with Sora and what we're discussing. So if you've seen the generative AI where you have a chat GPT or a computer program where you just simply give it a prompt and then it spits out a response, right? And text version, you're getting full essays and written and essays, questions, books, stories, poems. It spits out whatever you want in text version. Same thing in the visual format as far as pictures, but now they've really expanded into the art, into the video format. So here's a video, and there's no sound to these, but here you can just say the prompt was a camera follows behind white vintage SUV as it speeds down a steep dirt road. And so simply writing that into a website.
Think about how many jobs this is going to replace.
So none of this exists. None of this is real. So this is all just created in real time and just
would you say that looks more like a video game or more like actual real life, right?
I mean, do you don't see it with your own eyes? I mean, I ain't never played no video game that look like this.
Blockchain fixes this.
So the thing for me is that, yeah, I mean, for in the cinema and media game, it's obviously a game changer. And what does this mean for where does this fit in crypto? I mean, I don't know. I think it just shows you the power of AI. And obviously I've looked into stories where you have audits of smart contracts with AI. You also have basically coding, right? Yeah, you no longer need, or you can surpass other people's educations, basic educations in coding, and yeah, I mean just leverage an AI system, right? Or with some very basic knowledge, you can get very in depth in coding with the assistance of AI. So I think it's a disruptive technology, just like cryptocurrency. I think that's why it's fascinating to me, at least, because I look at crypto, I'm like, wow, like this is going to replace and modify the current financial system. And I think that AI is going to modify, disrupt, and change just technology in general, jobs, and
Definitely going to be exciting.
Future of entertainment, that's for sure.
And guess who's the capital of entertainment? Sin City. Let's talk about some pricing and charts here. So as Rob mentioned, Bitcoin 51.6. Taking a look at Bitcoin on the 1 hour, we have a few things going on here. So short-term trend is It's still up, right? We still made a higher low here on the 1 hour. All right, we take a look at the matrix oscillator here from Lux Algo. We did get a red dot printed, and money flow is turning green, which is great, right? So a lot of bullish things are happening on the 1 hour. If we zoom into the 4 hour, right? Money flow has not turned green yet, but we do see. Look at what we're seeing, guys. We're seeing some bullish divergence here, right? Hyperwave is trending down, price is trending up. So expect a breakout of Bitcoin. The flows are going to continue. The only thing that brings me a little bit of caution, but not too worried about it, is we are seeing continued uptick in grayscale selling. We kind of knew this was going to happen to some degree because Genesis just got the green light to sell more of their GBTC shares. The total is about 1.6 billion, with 1.3 billion being the Bitcoin trust, and then the other few couple hundred million are the ETH trust and some of the other altcoin trusts. So something to keep an eye on. We did enter a long in the Solana yesterday. We are in the green. So we did a 15x long position on Solana. Entry price was $102.37. Liquidation price just under $90. Feel pretty confident about this one. All our trades are in the green. We're still in our Maddox long trade, even though we did close out half of our position. So we did take some profits on that, but we let Stacks ride. Stacks are in a 10x position right now. This thing has been teetering back and forth, but not too worried. Our liquidation price is under $2, which if it does get close to that, I'll just go ahead and add more margin because I don't think Stacks is going to get that low. I think Stacks is going to have a massive rally. So exciting things happening. I did mention the SEC is getting sued over unlawful targeting of the crypto industry. Texas-based nonprofits platform Legilex, I hope I'm saying that correctly, and Crypto Freedom Alliance of Texas have filed a lawsuit against the United States Securities and Exchange Commission, arguing that the regulator has over the past few years overreached in its regulatory approach to the crypto industry. Said, quote, this is from the co-founder, Mike Waschak. We wish we were launching our business instead of filing a lawsuit, but here we are. Robin, the SEC was in hot water from Congress. I forget the details of it, but they were pretty much fabricated some things to kind of make a crypto company look bad. Do you think we're going to see more of this? And what are your thoughts on, the SEC's tune maybe changing now that there's more legal pressure coming their way? They're getting pressure from Congress, potential legislation being passed.
Well, I mean, what we saw with Grayscale, obviously there's been the summary judgment on the Ripple Labs case as far as the XRP token. So what we've seen is that the SEC is not almighty bully that doesn't catch any pushback, and there's wins on the crypto side, right? And for quite some time, it was just the SEC just dropping enforcement by intimidation, right, and lawsuits. And Ripple was really one of the few that stood up against it, had the treasury or the capital to go through a long standing legal battle. And I think that now people are seeing, like, hey, Grayscale came out on top, and it's okay to go against the SEC and actually have a real chance of winning. And so just straight being a bully and trying to push people around, I think the SEC is getting called on it or getting checked, right? And I think we're going to see more of it.
All right. Well, we have our guest ready to go. So first time on the show, we are extremely excited to have him on. We are big fans of Cardano here, as a lot of our community. We met Charles a few times, a couple times at NFT XLV, both this past year and the year before. Super nice guy. Just spends time talking to people, talking to the community. So we're excited to have him on. Let's go ahead and bring him on. Charles, how you doing?
Good to see you guys.
Good to
I
see
love
you
the lobster
too.
on the microphone.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, do you sign off on this? I feel like this is, something he's trying to bite your style here. What are your thoughts?
Well, no, the more lobsters, the merrier, man. You got to find your lobster.
Fair enough. Charles, first and foremost, thank you so much for joining our show today. We're excited to have you. I want to kind of ask you, I want to share this tweet you posted here of you doing a 3-minute cold plunge. Looks like in a frozen lake. I could be wrong. And I'm just going to...
the lakes on my property.
Yeah. And so I guess for me, of course, a lot of people are jumping on this trend, right? It's supposed to shock your body and reset some of your nervous system stuff. And I'm not a doctor, so I can't really go too much into that. Then you have people, of course, on the other side, which I'm sure you're not short of detractors, right? So how has this kind of benefited your life from not only a physical, but maybe from like a mental aspect as well?
Yeah, I mean, first people ask, where do I get health advice from? And I own a clinic. We have 6,400 patients now. It's gone up just a little bit, and we have a whole lifestyle center with it. And they look at the nutrition, the exercise, the sleep, and emotional health in addition to the allopathic side. So we have a lot of physicians there, and we talk to them. There's a great podcast like Peter Attia is awesome, and Huberman is another one that I get a lot of information from. So Huberman had a guest on, Susanna Soberg, and she's based, I think, in Sweden. She runs the Soberg Institute, and she has a PhD in metabolism. She's an expert in cold exposure. So she studies what happens to the human body when you go into really cold water, both positive and negative. So the positive benefits, you get these cold shock proteins, and for some reason they have a lot of great properties. They are anti-aging, they're anti-inflammatory. But the big thing for me was the neurotransmitter regulation. When you look at it under the hood, just spending a few minutes in water, you get a huge surge in dopamine that sustains itself for 1 to 2 hours, helps with serotonin regulation, oxytocin regulation. You also get a big spike of norepinephrine. So what that translates to is you feel really good and really fired up for about 2 hours after cold plunge exposure. And it's just a great way to start the day. So I built it into my routine. I come in the office, I got a cold plunge downstairs. That's the other tank you guys see me sharing. And that's called an Odin. It's set to about 37 degrees, which I think about 2, 3 degrees Celsius. And basically, I just go in for 3 minutes. I come out. No matter how tired I was when I went in, I feel great on the other side of it.
Huh.
And it really gets that morning started. The other big thing is weight loss. It activates brown fat and it beiges white fat, and it actually increases your basal metabolic rate. So you burn more calories. You might notice from those videos, I'm a little overweight. So I said, I was talking to my lifestyle people, and they're like, okay, let's figure out the exercise side, let's figure out the sleep side, let's figure out the diet side, and all those other activities. And I said, all right, well, if I put this into the routine, I can cut my calorie intake, but keep my basal metabolic rate where it's at right now. Because that's one of the big problems when you go on diets is that you cut your caloric intake, but your body kind of adapts to that. So you burn less calories. So it actually gets harder to lose weight. When you go back to your normal diet, you actually rebound very quickly. If you actually do the cold plunge with it, you can keep your basal metabolic rate higher. And so even though you're cutting your caloric intake down, you just create a larger deficit, but the body doesn't react in that dimension. So the hypothesis is it should help weight loss as well and sustained weight loss. So a lot of benefits, but I like the energy and I like the weight loss, and it also it's just pretty cool to go into a tank of
Literally,
brutally
right?
cold water and these things. Yeah, exactly
Literally.
right.
Very cool. Charles, I want to kick this thing off. So at NFTXLV last year, Rocco and I were there. We listened to your, I don't know if you call it a keynote speech, but you talked for about 20 minutes, and you talked about the three pillars of blockchain or decentralization. It was one of those three. And you said the hardest one was interoperability, and I believe you mentioned tokenomics being part of that reason. And then we have Plutus V3 is coming out, and this is something you tweeted. Brings so much to the table for Cardano dApps and blockchain interoperability. Can you maybe expand on that? And what is that solution, do you think, to that fragmented world of maybe tokenomics or liquidity? And because I think we can all agree here that the future of crypto isn't going to be set up this wallet for this chain and go to another chain and then use a bridge and do this, right? What are your thoughts there? And what is Plutus V3 looking to do?
So each of those areas where you talk about scalability, interoperability, and governance, there's insanely hard problems, and they're insanely hard problems for different reasons. So the hardest blockchain issue is the interoperability side, because incentives are working against you. Every problem where incentives are working against you, it's almost impossible to solve that problem. So a great example would be the drug war, or be like carbon reduction, or any of these things. The market is built in a way where incentives are actually to continue doing stuff the way you're doing it. But then you come and say, well, we don't want to do that. So then you try all these things like carbon taxes and other things, but those generally are not as strong of an incentive as the native incentives of it. So the system just behaves the way it does. And you fight these multi-year efforts, you never really get anywhere. So blockchains are no different, and interoperability is no different. As long as there are all these tokens, and the tokens are in a sum zero thinking that I have to win by having everybody else lose, there's no incentive for people to talk to each other and work together. So one of the things that we've been trying to solve with the partner chain framework, this concept of the Cardano service layer, is how does a blockchain make a deal with another blockchain and sell services to that blockchain? And it doesn't require movement of the network effects one way or the other. It's more like the API economy. So when you build a web application, okay, so something like one of these GPT style things, like an AI chatbot or something. Are you building your own AI? No. You're probably going to be using Anthropic or OpenAI or Google or somebody as your back end. You're building the front end, but then also you're probably building your account management system and all this other stuff. And are you hosting that on your own servers that you own? No, probably using Amazon or Rackspace, or some other provider. So when you look at the actual construction of the application, there's many different companies providing services through APIs or otherwise, working together to create one unified experience for a user. Well, dApps are no different in the blockchain space. When you take a step back and you say, hang on a second here, this thing that I'm using to like do a DEX or be my Oracle or play a video game, maybe there's like 6 or 7 blockchains and off-chain services that are involved in that entire conversation. Well, now we have a collective incentive for interoperability because that end user is going to kind of pay, and we're going to break it all up. So 5% goes over here and 10% goes here and 15% goes here. And you can build some special purpose infrastructure for that. So it's a hard problem. And if you look at it from the lens of sum zero, winner takes all, one blockchain to rule them all, it's actually quite an easy problem if you look at it from a Web 2 or a way that we look at normal server client applications, where we tend to have many different services that we consume to build our application. So it just depends upon the lens that you look at it. But then also on the scalability side, that's where the blockchain trilemma comes into play. And then when you look at the governance side of things, that is probably the hardest overall problem because it's an unsolved problem. We've already solved the interoperability problem from a perspective of the legacy world. We have yet to solve it in the crypto world because the tokens work against it at the moment. The scalability problem is a research problem. It's an open problem. We think we have pretty good slate of solutions, but nobody has quite cracked it. But in the next few years, it'll probably get resolved. The governance problem is the big open one. There's no idealized government. Name one country where everybody wakes up every day and says, this is the best run country in the world. They've never made a mistake. Everything is awesome. So governing a cryptocurrency is a super hard problem as well. But it's going to become, in my view, the longest term competitive differentiator. The midterm competitive differentiator is going to be interoperability and scalability. Scalability is commoditized. It's a smart cow effect. Whoever solves that, it's just a variation of the solution. Like proof of stake has become quite commoditized at this point. It's no longer a big differentiator that people have. But interoperability is an incentives engineering problem, and it's a cross-blockchain problem. And it has to do with how people consume the applications and if we can move to an API model or not.
Awesome.
I wanted to.
By the way, just real quick, who's raising money right now? Eigenlayer just closed a $100 million round. And that was Andreessen Horowitz. And then Layer Zero, I think they raised like 180 million at 3 billion. What's their whole raise on Detra? We're the meta blockchain guys. We're like the glue connecting all the blockchains. The people raising all the money right now are the people talking about interoperability and basically being that bridge between different systems.
I was going to ask you about that at some point. They raised Eigenlayer raised $100 million led by A16Z. And so this whole idea of restaking, it's funny because, when I first, so Robin, my co-host, he was the one who introduced me to Cardano first, right? Like my first buy was Bitcoin. Yeah. And then he would talk ad nauseum about Cardano, and he would have a Daedalus wallet and he would have his Cardano there and he would stake it. And so as I was getting into staking, I was learning, hey, lockup periods and this and that.
Right.
And Cardano was one of the first that did like true, like, I don't even know if liquid staking is the right thing to call it, but not having to lock it up. Yeah. And now you're seeing either centralized solutions being built for that, or other or other projects who are starting from scratch are also implementing that as well. What this thing of restaking, do you think this is going to be a big narrative going into this next market? Is this
Oh, yeah.
something? What are your thoughts?
I mean, we solved the problem, right? And everybody else is like, God, what can we do? I was at QSIG, and they had the lead researcher of Ethereum there, and he's like, if we had quantum computers, we could have liquid staking. Maybe, just maybe, there's like something else floating around. I don't know that's already solved this problem and doesn't require a quantum computer.
Hmm.
It's just a bizarre thing. It's like people asking how to do something that's already been solved and just puzzled about it. Just on Eigenlayer, if you look at the founder there, Satcham, we co-authored a paper with him, and that was Minotaur, which is the basis of Midnight. So actually, it's funny when you do research, you end up being connected to everybody directly or indirectly. And I was actually an early investor in Eigenlayer, so I was very happy when Andreessen Horowitz dumped a bunch of money into it.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's a restaking is a thing, and it just corrects a problem that a protocol design that Ethereum has. There's no reason to have bonding or slashing or any of these other things. It's not necessary. We solved that problem 6 years ago. We told everybody we solved it.
Hmm.
For whatever reason, Vitalik didn't believe us. Cardano exists. Like, so I don't, I mean, it's like we've been up for 6 years, 24/7, and it's running, and we have lots of stake pools and lots of delegation, and it's a pretty good user experience, I think, for everybody. It's a good governance model for everybody. So I don't know, man. They do them, and people have to pay for the consequences of them. And that's okay. Some people have a geothermal and hydroelectric power grid, and other people have coal. Or another thing, and if you burn trees and have coal in these things, you deal with the consequences and if you have geothermal and hydroelectric, you're like Iceland, and life is great. So we chose a very sustainable model that also we have a direct line of sight on how to achieve scalability with that model and fast finality with that model. It's very easy to go from Ouroboros to a fast finality gadget as a layer on, and it's very easy to shard an extended UTXO system with Ouroboros. We know how to do it. And that's Ouroboros, Paris, and Laos. And so the roadmap is moving along. And, every year we make progress on it. And you wake up and you have more capabilities year by year, but you don't actually reduce the overall security of the system. And you tend to actually have the system decentralize more over time, as measured by things like EDI. So, I like that directionality: better, faster, cheaper, more decentralized, lower operating cost. And you are in charge of your own funds. You don't ever have to give them to somebody else. You click a button in your wallet. They're your custody. It's non-custodial. And by the way, Switzerland, FINMA just came out with a ruling that said we're going to treat non-custodial staking differently from custodial staking. So if you are involved in this restaking or this staking business on behalf of other people, you actually might be a regulated financial institution.
Oh,
This
wow.
is not the case for a stake pool operator and a delegator in the Cardano world. And I tweeted that FINMA ruling maybe a week or two ago, so people can find it. So, I mean, we told them at conferences, we told them publicly, we tweeted about it, we built it in public. Vitalik seemed to criticize us over Reddit and other places, and we said okay. And now they've implemented it. They've had years to think about it, and they're dealing with the consequences, and we wish them well. And I love the fact that I make money on both sides. Cardano's doing quite well, and also I'm an investor in Eigenlayer. So, however this stuff fits out, it's working pretty good for me.
That's good. Yeah. I'm sure the bison will be happy too, right?
Yeah, I got to feed them. They're expensive.
About 9 years ago, you came out. They had the TED Talk, where the future's decentralized, which
Yeah.
you hosted, and I remember catching that really before I even knew much about Cardano at all. And it was interesting because at that time when I first watched the TED Talk, I kind of looked at crypto as a speculative asset, as do a lot of people that are probably watching here first get in just to simply try to make some money. And I was like, this concept or theory of a decentralized world with smart contracts, I didn't really think much of it. And when you
Mhm.
first had your speech on there, it was really that a concept. It was an imagination. It was just a thesis. But that was 9 years ago. And so I'm just curious, like, how far do you think we've come since then where smart contracts really were just an idea, and this idea of banking the unbanked and offering financial services, identity, and smart contracts globally to the billions of people that uh, don't have these services are are these services here now with crypto and just hasn't been adopted, or is it still being built out? Like, where do you think
No,
we
they're
are?
here. There's Goldfinch, there's all these guys. There's plenty of people. Like I have a company in Kenya called RealFi, and right now we've already lent out millions of dollars through aggregators for microfinance. And we're moving all of this stuff into crypto rails. And my long-term goal is to get it into Lace Wallet. And you can open up your Lace Wallet, and just like Kiva, you can see a list of real life people and lend to them, as an example. And 100% of that would be settled and cleared on a cryptocurrency rail. So we have stable coins. In fact, if you add up all the economic value of stable coins and the transactions of them, they're like the size of mid-sized countries. So that's happening real time. You have lending activity, you have completely decentralized exchanges, you have Oracle services, you have all kinds of diverse infrastructure, and we're at multi-trillion-dollar size when you look at the economic input of things. Back in 2014, when I did that TED Talk, we were not even close to any notion or concept of that. The other thing is we're having real conversations about the merging of the legacy and the DeFi world with respect to business models and intellectual property and regulation. So already everybody's talking about it, everybody's reacting to it. So in many respects, we achieved the vision that I was talking about in that TED Talk. Where we're lacking is that we have yet to have a situation where the majority of things are occurring inside the system. But back then, we didn't have the technology, we didn't have the scale, and we didn't have the approach. Now we actually have most of the tech, we have the approach, and we're starting to achieve the scale. It's happening quite organically, and it's happening not because people wake up every day and say, "Oh boy, I just really love crypto, and I'm a philosophical adherent to it, and it's the most amazing." It's happening because crypto has a path to be more secure, better, faster, and cheaper for the kinds of things that people want to do. Or crypto is the only option to preserve and protect something somebody cares about, whether it be their freedom of association, commerce, or expression, their economic agency, their ability to conduct global commerce right now. So look at Ethiopia as an example. There's a diaspora there. They're completely excluded from the global economy. It's the same case in Yemen. The only way they can get any form of cash in and out is probably through a crypto rail. So, it's there. It's the only option. And that's the reason why governments are taking it seriously. If it hadn't achieved anything and it didn't have any promise or prospect, nobody would care. It would be strictly just a law enforcement thing where people are being defrauded. Instead, they're saying this is the number one threat to the global financial order in the next 10, 20, 30 years. It's the number one threat to the dollar. It's the number one threat to the international banking and settlement system. And why wouldn't it be? Why would you want to live in markets where 1/3 of your cost is compliance? It takes days, hours, whatever to settle, and you have high transaction fees and tons of middlemen that produce no value at all, and they drain a huge amount of value out of the system. Why wouldn't you want to live in a single global market that runs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, instant settlement? Transaction fees are always getting lower, and also you have as many customers as possible inside your system, and you can do business with as many people as possible. Why wouldn't you want to rather live in that world? So that is the default state that people want to live in. The legacy system tries to prevent you from entering that state through predatory regulation and network effects and these types of things. So the tendency, the incentive set is actually to move more towards crypto. And that's why when you read reports from like Broadridge or reports from Citi and others, they say by 2030, cryptocurrencies are going to grow exponentially and add several $1 trillion more of value. The other thing they say is the areas of growth are going to be the merger of regulated and unregulated business. So how do you do regulated value transfer? How do you get regulated assets? How do you get identity and these other things in the blockchain space? So right around the same time that blockchain and smart contracts are getting big, we've had a big identity revolution. The decentralized identifier came into play, where we actually had an artifact that you can use as a universal identifier for humans and non-humans alike, dApps and machines and drones and AIs and inventory as well as a person. And then that artifact can actually have agency and be a smart contract and operate on it, and you can do stuff with it. That's the basis upon which you can merge those two worlds together. the legacy world and the non-legacy world. The other macro trend that wasn't present in 2014, it was brewing, but now it is definitely present in 2024, is the whole DEI and ESG movement.
Mm.
And when you go to COP28 or these places, I was just in Abu Dhabi for that. What were they talking about? We need to rebuild all the systems of the world for net zero carbon. Price tag, 150 trillion with a T, not billion, $1 trillion to rebuild all the systems of the world. Well, who's in charge of that? Is that America? China and Russia are going to have a disagreement about that. Is that Russia? Well, China and America are going to have a disagreement about that. Is that China? Russia and America are going to have a disagreement about that. So how do you get along? You need a system where people don't have to like each other to work together. Well, that's a blockchain.
Yeah.
It's a broker of trust amongst those who don't trust each other. So the only way we could actually implement a truly global in a multipolar world with geopolitical adversaries is through blockchain technology. It's the only way to do it. And you can't backdoor it and give universal access to one power because the other superpowers will reject that. So you have to actually have fair rules for everybody, regardless if it's a nation state or a corporation. So actually the game theory is working in a way where ESG is going to force the adoption of blockchain at every scale, from the gov tech down to the Fortune 500 level. They have no choice. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to achieve what they want. You will not get a net zero world in terms of carbon.
Yeah. I think what you just said kind of encompasses, a large reason why, the Cardano community is so outspoken. They love you. And because you are also outspoken, you're not afraid to speak your mind. But I feel like Cardano is a project that people, there's a lot of people who come out and who want to throw shade at Cardano or maybe you or the community. One tweet was from Adam Dean. I believe you know him. He's part of the founding team of the NFT XLV. So, he retweeted something that said, "Hey, how come they're not bringing a stable coin like USDC on, or how come they're not doing that?" And he said, "We are Cardano, right? Charles is not Cardano. We are Cardano. If you have an idea, make a proposal. You need money for a budget, make a proposal." But I just don't know why there's so many people who go out of their way to throw shade. I mean, I was watching an interview that Arthur Hayes was on, and I'm bringing this up because you tweeted this at him. He was, I'm not going to say what he said, but, he was saying Cardano's a wannabe Ethereum. You alluded to earlier.
There's no shortage of Bitcoin maxis out here.
Yeah.
One group to rule them all. It seems asinine just to
you alluded to earlier, Charles, some things that you guys have already done, have been doing for 5-6 years. Some of these other projects are starting to implement, but they don't really give credit where credit is due. Why do you think that is? Is this simply from a number of, hey, the price of the token is underperforming? Is it because you're like, well, what are your thoughts there? And why do you think someone like Arthur Hayes would go out of his way to really single out a project like Cardano?
Well, in Arthur's case, he's just being provocative for the sake of being provocative. It's good ratings for him. It creates virality. I mean, when you need engagement, you go kick Cardano a little bit. It's like kicking a beehive, and then all these bees come and sting you. So if you want distribution, like CoinBeer already reached out to me. They're like, "Hey, would you like to respond? We'll have you on." And it's like, because they know what they're doing.
Right.
It's
right.
outrage creates ratings. That's how this environment works. And I understand why they do it. It's like, okay, that makes sense. So Arthur, I don't take that too personally, although I've known Arthur for years, because remember IOHK? HK was Hong Kong. Arthur was also always going through there, and we'd run into each other all the time. So I talked to him. We still do have a very friendly and cordial relationship. And I'm like, come on, man, you really got to kick me? What's up? What are you doing? But, okay, if he wants to do that, it's not too harmful. A lot of it stems from my departure from Ethereum, depending upon who you ask. It's either, philosophical disagreements, the business side got killed and the technical side ruled the roost, or Charles Hoskinson is the worst human being alive. He's a sociopath, pathological liar. He defrauds everybody who's ever done business with him. Everybody hates him. No one can stand him. No one can ever do anything. Somehow, some way, stuff happened, but Cardano can't be legitimate if that's your viewpoint. Why?
Right.
Because I can't go and build an ecosystem worth $21 billion and have millions of people in it that has legitimate real technology and also be the world's worst human being. It's like, if you hate Trump, you can't give him credit for the Abraham Accords. You can't give him credit for anything because your whole worldview is he's the worst human being alive. So anything he does must be wrong. So there is some of that. And it's very popular if you're a maxi in the Ethereum circles or the Bitcoin circles to go point back to some books or whatever and say, oh, well, Charles Hoskinson is the worst guy in the world. So therefore, because he came up with Cardano, amongst others, that whole ecosystem can't be real. Or else, how do you reconcile that? I have no technical skills. I'm completely incompetent. I can't lead anybody. Everything I say and do is a lie. I'm a cult leader and defraud people on a regular basis. Oh, but by the way, we also wrote 201 really good academic papers. Oh, and by the way, we also wrote over 1 million lines of code. Oh, and by the way, the Cardano ecosystem is an amazing ecosystem with all these people in it. Okay, yeah, but Charles is still evil and has no idea what he's doing, and he's completely incompetent. I was in a Twitter space the other day, and a guy says, I've been listening to you for 7 years, and you've said the exact same thing for 7 years. You've never deviated. There's no inconsistency with it. How does that reconcile with pathological liar? How does that reconcile with all these personal attacks? Because typically these manipulative sociopaths, they gaslight everybody and they change the story every 15 minutes, right? Well, if you say the same thing consistently for 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, and Cardano is the ultimate example of that, where in 2014 with the TED Talk, I said, we're going to go build the engine of economic agency for the world. We literally went to Africa. We built an army of scientists. We built an army of engineers. We researched how to do it. We figured out all the components. We wrote down in Why Cardano in 2016, the rough sketch of it, wrote 200 papers, figured out how to do it, did it. And now we're starting to realize and turn on all those capabilities. And you see this beautiful decentralized engine. Well, how does that reconcile with this philosophy that people believe? It just can't. And so it's very, very similar to Trump derangement syndrome in that. So how do we solve it? The only way to solve it is for true decentralization on the governance layer of Cardano and getting a lot of community leaders to take a step up, because then what those Charles derangement syndrome people are going to do is say, Cardano is finally good because they fired Charles.
Of course. Yeah.
That's what they'll say. And that's fine. It's healthy and it allows the ecosystem to move on. The other thing we got to understand, guys, is it's like, I was on an interview the other day and I said, who's your favorite polo player? And most people are like, what? I don't watch polo. I don't give a fuck about polo. What are you talking about? And crypto's like that. It's like, Ethereum versus Bitcoin. If you go on the side of the street, go to Nashville, Tennessee, or go to Birmingham, Alabama, go to Dallas, Texas, you just pick some random person, be like, so what did you think of what Vitalik Buterin had to say about Charles Hoskinson? He's like, who the fuck are these people? What are you talking about? Okay. So it's not mainstream. It's not like asking about Taylor Swift or, the Broncos or Kansas City or these types of things. And so while we take this so seriously, we are like polo players complaining about other polo players. It's a very small club, crypto, relative to the scale and totality of the world. So why the fuck do we care? It reminds me of the early 90s. The culture of Apple was Microsoft wronged us and we have to get revenge, sue those guys, and Microsoft must lose and we must destroy. Steve Jobs came back into power in 1997. He said, that culture will kill this company. It's almost destroyed us. Fuck them. We're doing our own thing. And they went and did the iMac and the iPod and later the iPhone. Apple today does billions of dollars worth of business with Microsoft, and they coexist peacefully. There's ancient rivalries there, but they don't particularly care. They don't get in each other's way. They're their own companies, and Apple's a multi-trillion-dollar company. They almost went out of business when they had that victim mindset. So the real strategy here is to take a step back and say, look, let's stop being a polo player, picking on another polo player. Let's go play football. Let's actually go into the mainstream and build things that the mainstream cares about, that they're very excited about and are prescient. Decentralized large language models. Maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't trust the whole future for generative AI in the hands of OpenAI and 5 other guys who are robocoping to everything. Decentralized social networks. Maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't put all our tokens and faith in Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or these other people, and maybe we should have more control and agency over that. Are these small market or mass market products? OpenAI got to 1 million customers in 5 days.
That's crazy.
These are the fastest growing products in human history. So go do those types of things. Decentralized telecommunications, like what World Mobile is doing. Okay, let's build an ISP that has 1 billion users. So if you're connecting the unconnected, you're banking the unbanked, if you're returning power of large language models to the masses and social networks to the masses, people are going to care a lot more about that. And by the way, because we're more efficient, our cost of delivery of financial services is going to go down. Our competitors goes up.
Mm.
So all we got to do is just focus on real life utility. And all these drama and these other things, they just fade away. The people's Charles derangement syndrome, they'll say, oh, Charles is gone now, so we can love it. And everybody else will be like, we didn't say that.
Yeah.
We've always been Cardano fans. We've always admired Cardano. It's the best blockchain in the whole world. It's the best thing in the whole world. And they won't even know it's Cardano because interoperability.
Right.
Because they're paying in their fees. Just like if you go to France, you buy a coffee, paying dollars with your credit card. Now, under the hood, it goes to euros, but you never see that. There's all this stuff that happens there, right? So that's the world we're moving towards, and we have to get there with blockchain, and that's how you solve the problem.
Very well said. They say the grass is green, not on the other side, but the grass is green where you water it. And so if more people focused on making their product and service better, then the whole space would be better. I believe Robin knows something.
Yeah. You tokenizing any of them bison or buffalo? I'm just curious.
I've been trying. We had crypto bison. I gave it to Reflect, and they haven't gotten around to it. But we will do it one of these days. We built a whole proof of concept video game, generative music, all this stuff, and we did it with these French developers, and we gave it to Reflect, and they're like, I don't know. We got all these other games in the catalog, but it will somehow make its way forward. What's his name? Wanted to do James Cameron wanted to do Avatar for 20 years, and then he's like, I gotta wait.
On cattle, I always see those little tags on the ear, and so when I think of crypto disrupting the agriculture and farmland and cattle, for example, I'm like, well, why do they got that tag on the ear? I feel like it's inhumane to pierce the ear. Maybe we just throw a
kids' ears.
Throw a Cardano address on them.
They don't feel it. They don't feel it. The ear in cattle are fine. It's just like pierced ears.
Yeah.
And people walk by, they don't feel it. Sears tags are an example of a next generation IoT product that has that, but you need to tag and track cattle, and you have to because you want to know the supply chain. You want to understand what were they fed, where did they live, what's going on with them, where were they slaughtered, where were they finished, these types of things. Because I, as a consumer, would like to understand the provenance of my meat. So that's a vital component of it. In fact, frankly, we don't do enough tracking and sourcing in our supply chain, and we need to get better understanding. I'm very privileged because I own my own bison. I kind of know where my meat comes from, man. It's like, and I know they're grass fed because I'm the guy who feeds them the grass. It's like, there we go. And you don't have to vaccinate bison or any of these things. There's no approved brucellosis vaccines for bison, so basically they're completely natural herd, exactly the same type of meat that a Native American would eat 1,000 years ago, off of bison they hunted with an arrow. So very few people have that privilege. And I'd like to get to a point where you can scan a QR code on a package and you can know that whole thing. But, there's actually a great Wyoming-based venture that explored that for a long time. It was called Beef Chain, where they're actually figuring out how do you get beef on a blockchain and actually prove every step of the way for the cattle. And there were some great people that worked on that project.
Yeah, I was listening to your Spaces yesterday. You did an AMA, and that was one of the things you touched on. You also touched on LLMs. We're seeing these pictures all over X and social media of the Google's Geminis refusing to spit out pictures of a certain skin color. And so you mentioned, Charles, that one of your, and I'm paraphrasing here, but one of your goals or ideas would be to create a decentralized language learning model. Is that something that at this point is just an idea, or has there been some concrete planning that has gone into it? And how might that be incorporated into what Cardano is doing, if at all?
So great architectures and business strategy give you options. This is something we learned from Apple and something that Microsoft was a master of and Google's a master of. There's a reason why they're multi-trillion-dollar companies. Same for Tesla. So if you look at our R&D, we wrote 200 papers. You go and talk to the other people in this space, and they're all like, eh. But if you actually read the papers, you realize that half the stat is telling us how to approach a market if we wanted to enter in it. So, for example, we wrote Proof of Useful Work. It was just masturbating and just having fun, learning how to do stuff. No, we wrote that paper because we wanted to understand, could you use a miner to secure a blockchain and do something that's useful with those computations? Doesn't matter if you're folding proteins or factoring prime numbers or training a large language model or acting as an inference engine for a large language model. No, It's immaterial. It's just a parameterization of a useful proof of work puzzle. So that's one of several components you would need to build a decentralized LLM. You need some place to get the enormity of the computing power necessary to train and retrain and inference these types of events. Another thing you need is the data side of it. So we wrote some papers and we thought a lot about data privacy. Lo and behold, we have midnight. Why? Because people need to share massive sets of data for the LLMs to trade on. And if those are all public, no one's going to provide it. Would you really want people to see all your medical records or these other things? But if they're private, you could sell them for training purposes, knowing that they'll never be disclosed. Okay, so midnight exists. Look at that. Go figure. Then we did all this research for partner chains. What was the point of partner chains? A service layer. An LLM like ChatGPT, that's a service. You ask a query, you send a prompt in, you get an answer out, right? So it's a transaction. I send something in, I get something out. I pay a token fee for that. That map's really beautiful to a service layer if you really think about it. It's an API model, right? Okay, so we built the partner chains framework and the service layer for Cardano. So the R&D and the roadmap is actually creating an option space where if we wanted to pursue this, either individually or with partners like SingularityNet or whatever, it'd be very straightforward to pursue it. So it's something I'm super interested in. I just haven't had the real time to dig into what's the best approach for it. So already we're seeing people who are able to mix models, mixtures of experts, like Mixtroll is an example of this, where from a parameter count and inference cost viewpoint, it's significantly cheaper to run it, but you're getting GPT 3.5 to 4 level performance for a 7 billion parameter model. So there's already a lot of notion of how in the open source world with like Dolphin, with Mixtroll or whatever, to create a model that has more permissive alignment that's more beneficial for society. Decentralized governance. Doesn't that sound a little bit like AI alignment? Like Anthropic has their constitutional AI concept. We're writing a constitution for Cardano. They seem to create an option space where one can port into the other for alignment training of an AI as well. So it's something we're thinking about, and it's absolutely something we'll pursue in the future as the stars start aligning, especially if we feel that the default state of the market is going to result in a dystopian end reality. I'm very obsessed with algorithmic stablecoins because I don't want asset-backed and CBDCs to win. If they win, they own crypto. Yeah. So we need an option so crypto can stay free. I'm very obsessed with proof of stake and Edinburgh decentralized index and these things because I know if you optimize these things the wrong way, 5 guys run your whole network. And I don't want a reality where all of the infrastructure of freedom is controlled by 5 guys. That doesn't make any sense to me. So we need to make sure we have a decentralized option. And again, I'm very obsessed with AI. And you've seen some tweets and other things from me. Why? Because I don't like the idea that some person I've never met at Google can arbitrarily decide what is okay and not okay with no oversight or constitutional protections. And it's not just the skin color stuff. I mean, they have in the training set now, if you ask, should we have a border wall between the United States and Mexico, that's a racist thing, right, according to the training sets and alignment training. I don't know, maybe it's some area in Arizona or something where there's a huge amount of cartel traffic and ranchers are being murdered. Maybe we should build a physical barrier. Well, that's racist, according to the alignment training. Because some guy in Washington state, never even been aboard, know nothing about it, arbitrarily made that decision. That's not how a free society works. This is a public good. It's a public resource. And every one of Gen Z and Gen Alpha is going to base their notion of truth and research based on interactions with these systems. Bingo. So again, a small group of people can get in a room and now they have total control not only over the flow of information, but how people think and Bingo. Where people think truth derives from. So anytime you see that, it's catastrophic to society if a small group of people have control over it. I do not trust Sam Altman. I do not trust Google. I don't trust any of these AI providers. It was Sam Bankman-Fried, I think, who was one of the biggest funders of Anthropic.
Yep.
So it's like,
I wonder why.
I mean, it's like, I just don't trust these guys. So yeah, you're damn right. It needs to be in the cryptocurrency space. Now, whether we do it or somebody else does it, it's all about execution. Who is the best person to execute? Because at the end of the day, it's ego. If you say, I must do this, I must do it. It's an ecosystem. You have to find great partners. Like, I'm never going to build a DEX. Why? Because there's like 12 really good options in the Cardano ecosystem, and they're all doing great work and they're evolving really quickly. And in the broader cryptocurrency space, there's tons of DEXs. I don't for a moment feel that like the DEX space is an existential issue. That is doing really well. You go and partner with those people. We would only build a decentralized LLM, if we had the capability and the infrastructure, but also if we felt we had a unique advantage for our team to do something like that. Why are we building Midnight? It's a super fucking complicated thing. It requires exceedingly deep understanding of decentralization and cryptography. How many people around have 168 scientists on their, the Rolodex, written 200 papers and have invented half the crypto that we're dealing with right now? We do. There's like 4 or 5 other groups in the world that have equivalent capabilities. So we're one of the few people that actually can do something like Midnight and give blockchains the ability to keep a secret. So that's why we're doing it. And we think we can do it in a way that maximizes decentralization and preserves and protects the freedom of association, commerce, and expression. So there's philosophical reasons, there's operational reasons, and then there's just USPs and that we have the best skill set. Are we the best people for AI at the moment? No. We don't have a huge cadre of AI experts. We know a lot about resource-based systems and decentralized systems and data and these things. And so we could certainly leverage those capabilities. But to build a decentralized LLM, we'd actually have to acquire that talent. And that's hard talent. When Elon Musk is putting his team together for Grok, $250 million you had to pay in poaching. Wow. To get people incentivized to come and join, because everybody is just like every 6 months leaving their AI thing and going to another AI thing. Like, I have a friend over at Google, and I asked him, how's it working over there? And he says, we have on average for our AI group, like 9 to 10 poaching attempts a week from recruiters for people and mid-level AI people, because it's just like such a sexy thing right now, these LLMs. And so if you're going to go and build a decentralized LLM, it's like, okay, where do you get the talent from? Right. And that's a really expensive talent set to pull together. We probably could come up with a philosophical way of doing it, but I don't want to go into that space right now for that reason.
Just sell your stake in Eigenlayer. You said you made a lot of money, right? Just dump it all in it.
So also, so you're not gonna build an orb that scans your retina. That's what I caught there. No.
Yeah, I know. Well, we do identity, but we do self-sovereign identity, where you own your own identity. That's Prism. It's an open source framework. It's now a Hyperledger. It's under an Apache 2 license. Anybody can create their own DID. And with a privacy layer like Midnight, you can actually do zero knowledge authentication. They're called the non-creds. Turns out you don't need to scan retinas for this type of stuff. But I mean, if you're friends with Bill Gates and this is your thing, maybe you have a difference of philosophy. These people like controlling things. Whenever anybody tells you it needs to be closed source, what they're saying is, I'm smarter than you. Trust us. You're not responsible enough to have our technology.
Must be a
That's just an insane statement.
Also, you mentioned the promise of algorithmic stable coins and kind of getting away from the traditional stable coin as far as centralization and their control when it comes to the crypto space. How do there's such a bad stigma over the word algorithmic stable coin? I think like even when you say it brings up recent memories of Terra Luna and their collapse. If you were to propose the idea of algorithmic stable coins to say live to like a Congress or a nation state or someone that that might not be too familiar with it, how would you pitch or sell that in a way like knowing that they probably know the algorithmic bad because of Terra Luna? Like how do you convince somebody that it's an emerging technology that really needs to be here, right? To keep the ethos of crypto.
So first off, when you talk about algorithmic stablecoins or you talk about anything involving value stability, what you're really saying is that you have an asset over here or a basket of assets over here, and for the use cases that you want to use them for, they're not suitable because they're too volatile. So you create a synthetic asset over here with some process, and some group of people takes the volatility risk with some mechanism. And another group of people pay a premium to get stability. This is not an uncommon thing in markets. People get options. You can buy call and put options and create a collar on something, and then you have volatility within a band, and you pay a premium for that. And your counterparties basically take the risk, and they get all the upside if it stays within that band. If it moves outside that band, they either get screwed or they have a real good day. So algorithmic stablecoins are no different. It's just the real question is, what is the mechanism of algorithmic stability? So there's a spectrum, and on one side of the spectrum, which is where I started in my career with BitShares, that side is over collateralization. Okay, so you spend more to make a dollar. So you put 4 or 5 or whatever dollars worth of asset in, it create a dollar worth of a synthetic asset. Now, this works. I've never really seen any of these types of coins go to hell because it takes so much volatility that for the most part, you've dampened volatility to it. And why don't people do it? Because it's not sexy from a payday perspective, an economic perspective. Over collateralization is a very economic, inefficient way of doing things. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, which where Luna existed, you either have full or partial collateralization. So that works until it doesn't. And while it's working, you made massive returns, huge profit. And when it doesn't work, what you have is cascading failure because you have bank run on it. So Luna worked. We looked at the model and we said, well, the minute that we have a black swan event in crypto, you'll have cascading failure and everybody will lose all their money. And I even was sitting in Dubai with the 3 Arrows Capital guys. And I said, I can't understand your models. Like, what will happen if we have the market move more than 20, 30, 40% in a week or two? And they said, oh, that'll never happen. I was like, I've been in crypto, man.
What do you mean that'll never happen?
We went from $1 to $30 Bitcoin down to 4, up to 256, down to 80, up to 1,200, down to 250, up to 20,000, down to 4,000.
This time is different, though. This time is different.
I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? This is so crazy. It's so of course that happens. That's why you over collateralize it. So, well, we have these things. Like, yeah, okay, that must be Mike Novogratz's 10 smartest people I know, and he's enjoying his Luna tattoo. So that doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. So you have to have some combination of over collateralization, speculation, and financial products like options, as well as a basket to help moderate volatility. And what you can do is create a synthetic asset that behaves predictably within a band. What we're doing right now is looking at things from first principles with the JET program and saying, what's the best you can do, where you have really strong guarantees within a band. And then once you step outside of that, what you're basically saying is this is an unsafe asset. You can't do any better because you step outside, it's no longer safe. And my recommendation to a regulator is know where those bands are. And after you know where those bands, you advertise your damn snack. I know you know where those bands are. Treat that asset one way. But if you step outside of that, treat it as a high risk asset, and don't have consumers consume it because, on average, over the long term, it's going to collapse. It's going to have a bank run. If you're on the other band, it's an economically inefficient. But you know what? It's the price you pay for stability. And we do this all the time in life. You buy fire insurance for your house. You buy auto insurance for your car. We do all kinds of things to mitigate some event or risk. And you create marketplaces for it, and people make billions and lose billions of dollars trading risk. So you have to build those products up and engineer those products, but nothing is free. And if somebody comes to you and says, I have this magic black box that is 1-to-1, and somehow it's going to magically stay at $1 despite 90% volatility, they're a scammer. They're stealing your money. Somebody comes to you and says, I have this model where we're going to combine a collection of baskets of things over collateralization and potentially options or other risk mitigation vehicles. And the basket together is going to keep you basically within a band of volatility. That's a Wall Street trader. And they do this every single day at a scale of trillions of dollars, and everything from oil to gold, other things. It happens all the time. Like if you're an airline, you need to pay a certain price for jet fuel, or else your margins go to hell. So you pre-buy stuff, you make deals with people. You think it's like, this is how financial markets work. Okay, so it's nothing new, and we know how to regulate it. We know how to talk about it. The problem is because tokens, then everybody thinks the rules are different. These are just the same in terms of the financial engineering and these things. You just need to apply the same principles for it. So JET is all about figuring that out. So it started over collateralized and over restrictive, and now the game is to thaw it a little bit and make it more economically efficient and see how far you can take it before it can't get to that level. And that's where you stop it. And then you tell the regulator, that's what a stable coin should be. Asset-backed stable coins are not cryptocurrencies. They're not. They trade on crypto, but they're no better than an asset-backed security.
Yeah.
Okay, because why? At the end of the day, 100% of their value comes from a promise that somebody is making, a centralized actor is making in a particular jurisdiction, in a particular set of regulations outside of the cryptocurrency space. So you are completely at the mercy of whether that person wakes up on the right side of the bed and doesn't steal money. Completely at the mercy of that. I mean, that's no different than the legacy banking system that we currently have. So that's not a cryptocurrency. And 70% of all the transaction value right now in Bitcoin and all the other major smart contract systems is in asset-backed stablecoins.
Yeah.
Tether and Circle being the top two. So know who controls that. And here's the other problem, guys. That centralized actor has total control over your network. Why?
Yep.
Because let's say you fork and you have chain A and chain B. They can't go partial collateral. So if they fork, they can't say, well, we'll have stable coin on A and B and just see which one the market decides. They have to pick a winner because they can only support one by law. So what are they going to support? The one that's less regulatory friendly, more freedom embracing, more decentralized, or the one that is more centralized, they have more control over and less compliance risk and more efficiency over? So almost always they're going to move in a direction towards centralization instead of decentralization, because decentralization is risky for regulated businesses because you have unpredictable elements in decentralization. So if you hand your network to Tether and Circle, you basically implicitly hand the power of what forks and features are legitimate and which ones aren't. Lo and behold, Tron just lost Circle because Justin Sun's starting to run a little afoul of things. In an algorithmic stablecoin, that would still be there today. So you really have to understand, what are you saying when you invite asset? Well, why do people like asset-based stablecoins? Because they're the most efficient stablecoins you can get. There's no cost to creating the stability other than trusting a centralized actor. So it works until it doesn't, just like Luna. And when it doesn't, you have cascading failure, for the system.
Yeah. So there's really no foolproof algorithmic stablecoin, right? Just how much insurance you got on the back end is kind of what I'm taking away, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Just like real estate. It's like you can buy a house and, on average, real estate tends to work out for most people, but every now and then, maybe, like the next door neighbor is like a meth house or something like that, and it contaminates the whole area. And
Sounds like my neighborhood.
Yeah, and your value of your house goes in half or something, or maybe you're on vacation and a whole bunch of people show up at your house and like mass murder happens and you have to kick out, and then suddenly nobody wants the house because it's the murder house or something like that. That actually happened to a friend of mine. He had this crazy person come into his house while he was on vacation and killed himself inside the house. And it's like he comes home and there's just like blood all over the place and all this stuff. And he's like, oh God, I was planning on moving next year. It's like, what do I do? So after they took care of this thing, he's like, couldn't sell the house.
Yeah.
So why you move? Well, we had this murder and all this other stuff and these things. Oh yeah, I saw that in the paper. Oh, I don't want to live in the murder house. Right. So real estate's a good bet most of the time. And that's the point about life. No matter how good things are, you get cancer or heart disease, or you get old, or no matter how good your job is, at some point company goes out of business or the business model changes, even Steve Jobs is gone.
Yeah.
So stability is not about absolute stability. Stability is about probabilistic stability and banded stability and marketplaces. Because then what you can do is have an outlook and say, how professionally paranoid am I? And you can protect yourself. Even in the US dollar, if you ask yourself, okay, do you think the US dollar is going to be the world reserve currency tomorrow? Most people, yes. Do you think it's going to be the world reserve currency stable and secure in 35 years from now?
No.
I don't know, right? It gets a lot more difficult. Maybe 20, maybe 10. I don't know. Where do you cut that? Well, you have an opinion. I have an opinion. The price of 30-year treasury bills reflects that opinion. And so people basically create marketplaces, and then you trade your values and you trade your beliefs inside those marketplaces. So stability is no different in that dimension.
Great thing said. Charles, we did we were running a little poll on our Twitter, being that Cardano was so community driven. We said, hey, look, what question would you ask Charles if you had the opportunity? We'll pick a winner. We'll give him a shout out. So we have our winner. So this is from Dennis V. He wants to know, what can we look forward to and seeing from Cardano in the next few years? that will separate itself from the plethora of layer ones currently in the blockchain. And I'll kind of add a little bit to that. What are you most excited about in 2024 for Cardano?
Governance. Like Steve Ballmer came out there, developers.
Sweaty armpits and
He
arms.
was sweating, man. He was
Oh
sweating.
man, cocaine is a hell of a drug. Okay, so governance is like the big thing, guys. This is the big differentiator between us and everybody else. You got Vitalik writing articles saying on-chain governance can't work. We're not even going to think about it. So it's the same like quantum computers are necessary to do liquid staking. Okay. Governance. If you have on-chain governance and you truly engage everything, we get three things, and these are the best things in the world. First, Cardano has a built-in sovereign wealth fund. There's $900 million currently in it, worth of ADA. And it's locked up. And Catalyst kind of accesses it, but that whole thing opens up. And then every year, the community can come together in a decentralized way, build a budget, vote on a budget, and distribute funds, just like a government does. That will unlock so much acceleration and escalation of adoption of the roadmap and so many new ventures to come on. And it's 10 times better than any of these centralized sources because it's not some pay-to-play development fund that people have. Second, it unlocks the creativity and knowledge of all of the people that are in Cardano. No matter how good of a roadmap a person puts together, no one is smarter than everyone. So if you have a good on-chain governance system, you also have a good distributed system for aggregating the wisdom of the crowds and thus translating that to a much more inclusive roadmap that actually balances out the development of the system as a whole. The third part about governance that nobody ever talks about is that once you have the governance in Cardano, then also what you can do is be much more methodical about upgrading Cardano to gain more capabilities and partner with other systems. Okay, there's a lot of changes we got to make with Cardano to get Cardano to the next level to make it suitable for 1 billion people. Those changes by nature are controversial. What Bitcoin does is say, me. They don't listen to anybody. It's anarchy. You can never change anything. It takes years to get even very basic things like covenants or SegWit or whatever into the system. Okay. And you have research groups like ours. They say, hey, NEPA and this and this and this. And look how amazing. You get all this stuff for free. Oh, no, we can't do that. Sorry, Bitcoin doesn't change. So that's unchanging anarchy. And what Ethereum does is they have no on-chain governance system. So there's no one to counterbalance the foundation or other people. So the roadmap is 100% of what did Vitalik think is important and his people. Okay. And if they're wrong, it takes them quite a bit of time to move the ship. And in many cases, they can't because the economic incentives work against them. This is why the changeover from proof of work to proof of stake was so relentlessly hard for them. It wasn't just a protocol design. They had to fire all the miners inside the system. If you have on-chain governance, you have a mechanism for embracing controversy and coming out the other side with a solution to it that is legitimate and doesn't destroy your system. When you have no mechanism for that, you get a Bitcoin Cash and Ethereum Classic. You get fragmentation. The more controversial, the more fragmentation. And let me see here. We got identity coming to the crypto system. We got sharding coming to the crypto systems. We got zero knowledge and privacy tech coming to the crypto system. Are these non-controversial things? Oh my God, they're incredibly controversial because baked in them have values and trade-offs. And just because one is the most libertarian doesn't mean it's going to win. A lot of people are going to want another one, the Solana way of going. Why? Because it's maybe faster and cheaper and it has more competitiveness. So what do? You throw all your principles out to make token price go up? Or do you preserve and protect your principles, accepting the fact that there's a slower appreciation? Who gets to decide? If you have an on-chain governance system, you have a mechanism for that, and people can put it all on the line. And eventually a decision is made, and when it's made, that is Cardano, for better or for worse. Okay, so you get those things, and that's so powerful. And any blockchain that doesn't have those things, they get to a plateau. They get to the limits, and they start making catastrophic mistakes, or they get badly out of date, like Bitcoin, and they can't compete with the rest of the structure. So I'm most looking forward to governance. And boy, do we have one of the best governance plans ever conceived. SIP 1694, tripartite government. You have liquid democracy and DREPs, and already people are figuring out how to have like multi-sig DREPs so multiple people can control a DREP. You got all this amazing idea flow here, governance dashboards being built. You got a constitutional committee with on-chain algorithmic governance, where the guardrails of the Constitution can actually be put on chain and constrain the behavior of a constitutional committee. And they got stake pools still involved in that for major governance events. And then come to the end of the year, the totality of the Cardano community is going to elect delegates and send those delegates in to Argentina for a constitutional convention with more than 50 countries participating.
Saw that
The
yesterday.
most decentralized exercise in the history of our industry, and coming up with some basic rights that every Cardano member has, just like the United States has a Bill of Rights. It's there. And then you have an on-chain governance system paired with institutions like Intersect, the foundation, and other things. And those institutions can manage budget process and roadmap and all the things. So you get the best of that. But then you still have true decentralization inside the system. We thought about this for years and years and years as an ecosystem. All our competitors either say it's not important, which means they're headed off a cliff, or it's too hard of a problem to solve. So we're going to focus on other things, which, by the way, will eventually lead to a cliff as well. Meanwhile, we embraced the complexity. It's just like I raise bison. Why? One thing I really love about them, they're one of the few animals when there's a snowstorm, they turn and walk into the storm. They don't run away from the storm. Okay, Cardano is the bison. We walk into the storm. We embrace complexity. We embrace fights. We solve the hardest problems in the ecosystem. And what do we tell to the rest of the industry? Cardano is the leader. We were the first provably secure proof of stake protocol. We were the first liquid non-custodial staking protocol to be implemented. We were the first smart contract UTXO system at scale. And now we're going to be the first true on-chain governance system to create real decentralization for the ecosystem as a whole. So that is a massive competitive differentiator. Everything else like scalability, all this, that comes. And we have 26 different approaches, and we'll have an on-chain governance system to decide, and there's a giant treasury to basically pay. And you know what will end up happening is we will get there, okay? And we'll get that adoption. And what's so great is this is just as true at 1 million users as it is 10 million, 100 million, or 1 billion users. It scales to all those different users. So what does that mean? You wake up in 20 years, you'll have 1 billion people in your system, and it's fair and inclusive. And those billion people feel like they actually have a fucking say in how things work. That's not the case right now for any of these other protocols. They have no strategy for that, but we do.
I think that's a mic drop right there, Charles. You know what's amazing to me is, years of doing podcasts and interviews and spaces. And, I'm sure we've asked you some questions here that you've probably gotten multiple times, and your passion still after all this time behind what you say and behind Cardano and everything you guys are doing is truly amazing. And I think that's one of the reasons why the community loves you so much. We really appreciate your time.
We didn't get we have an in-house computer science engineer and mathematician here as well. They didn't get asked any questions. Gravy Train.
Oh, we do?
Yeah,
Oh,
Gravy Train. Oh, there she is.
There
What
she
are you
is.
talking about?
Yeah. Do you have any questions for Charles? I don't want you to feel left out.
No,
No?
I don't right now.
No.
Charles, she does. And I'll ask you for her. She's a little shy. She wants to know, were you chasing your coffee with a smoothie?
I was genuinely curious. What was in the mug? What was in the clear
So-
cup? What was going on?
This is like one of those meal replacements that they got, so this is my lunch. It's the gruel.
Oh.
I'm living in a very ascetic phase. I'm standing on spike boards and sitting in cold plunges and drinking gruel and these types of things. But hopefully it promotes higher.
Charles, nothing better than a
phase
good
of digestion.
pappardelle with a nice ragu.
Oh my God,
Sorry, I
absolutely. You
gotta
get the
say.
wild boar ragu.
There we go. Now we talk.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
talk my
Now
language.
this
I
man,
love
he
it.
knows.
I know my
This
stuff, yeah.
is- that's the Naples special, man.
I'm just a barbecue chicken pizza kind of guy. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah.
that's
All right, barbecue. Just to close on this. The best
okay.
barbecue in the world.
There we go.
Best barbecue in the world. I've been to 73 countries. I've been everywhere in the world. You hear that song, I've been every world, where, man? I was like, they were singing about me. Okay, I've been everywhere. The best, absolute best barbecue in the entire world is in Louisville, and it's called Wayne's Smoke Shack. It's only open 2 days a week. It's open on a Friday and a Saturday, only for 4 hours a day. But usually it's only actually open for about 2 hours because when he sells out,
That's
he's
it.
just like close his shop. So there's massive lines that form, and you go and talk to Wayne, and you're like, Wayne, why aren't you open more days? He's like, no, these are the only 2 days. And it's like, well, can you set some barbecue aside? He's like, all men are equal under Wayne.
That's
It's
it.
first come, first serve.
That's cool. That's
it's-
dope.
I
and they
took
have
note.
candied pork belly. It's the best.
That's
So if you're
amazing.
ever in Colorado, Wayne's Smoke Shack.
Wayne
place to
Smoke
go.
Shack.
Okay.
Done.
I took note already.
Charles,
Or if
thank
you're
you.
ever in Vegas, make sure you come down here to this studio. I know you come
Oh,
for the
yeah.
rodeo quite often, and so.
I come every 3 to 6 months to Vegas because there's always some event. Like we're probably going to be there for Rare Evo.
Oh yeah, and
Oh, we'll be there too.
There's a few other events. Yeah, so I'll see you guys there.
Awesome. Charles, we truly appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Take
All
care.
right, thanks.
Man,
That was good.
you know that interview has been in the works for over a year. Well over a year. That is someone that we were really excited to bring on. So big shout out to Charles and his team for helping set that up. And big shout out to you guys. Big turnout today. A lot of Ada fans. So we appreciate you guys. Also, shout out to Dennis V, who is the winner. Dennis, if you're here watching, I just DM'd you. Send me your Ada wallet address and we'll send you over your 50 Cardano.
And we had a lot of new people here, so I'm just gonna go down the list.
God.
I'm sure most of them are well and gone, but you got Berto, Andrew, Proxies, Isoma, Silent, Goody, Crusher, Austin P, Crypto Poppy, Zero Thix, Jason C, Adam Bailey, which we know by the way.
Adam!
Bert, Crypto Niz, Antonio M, Crypto Lyrics, Honda, Matt Shank, Gareth Thomas, R.B. Hari, and to all of you that I missed, thank you for joining us, and hola! Welcome to Sin City Crypto.
Let's see if we move the Cardano markets.
Did we move the markets?
We did 2%.
Oh yeah, that's it. That worked.
2%.
We broke it here, guys.
Guys, we're breaking. We're market movers here. All jokes aside, guys, thank you so much. Come back tomorrow for Forest Friday. It'll be another great show. And follow us on X at Sin City Crypto 1. Check out our channel sponsor, Cam's Blue Wire Technology, bluewiretech.com. If you want to learn how they can help your business scale and grow. And with that being said, Rocco, should have asked Charles for a finger tornado, man.
Thanks God he forgot.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's in Tornado Valley. Is that Colorado?
Tornado Alley? No, that's Oklahoma.
No.
Anyways, Tornado Alley in the studio.
Okay.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Big thank you again to Charles and the team. We appreciate you guys. Do you want the lobster to come back? Let us know. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Crypto.
Thank you,
Everybody
guys.
know we
Ciao.
here for entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I spit the game, but they gave it. Named according to your favorite. I got dry powder, why save it? To the OGs, new beginners. Special shout out to the well members. Buy dip, sell winners. Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners. Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pizzas. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And sinners gon' play to win. Screaming, hola, till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon and to the solar. Won't don't be letting FOMO control ya. It's over when the finger tornado close ya.